Yeah.
Okay. I will sit because it's a bit early. So here I am sandwiched between amazing duo, one of the most dynamic group of people in Europe. And what can I say? You know, first of all, Maria, you're not allowed to quote me anymore or show my images because you went way above over quota. Because after this introduction, thank you so much. All I can do is fail and fail and fail. So thank you for that. The second thing is, you know, the second time I'm participating in the event you guys organized, and the first one, 2019, was absolutely amazing. You know, we share different perspectives. We probably equally, between all of us, have equal number of misunderstandings. None of us knows enough computer science to really understand the revolution which is taking place now in image understanding. But what we lack in the scientific knowledge, we compensate for our passions, our love for images, and our love, I think, for mysteries of images. Having said that, I'm going to do something terrible, which the worst thing you can do to hosts, which is to change the topic without telling them. And I thought I told you, but then I realized I forgot. Oh, this is okay. Now the challenge is already started because it's a keyboard with some alien language. Okay, perfect. Here we go. Okay, that's pretty good. Oh, and that was okay. Here we go. I was going to talk about what I see as a very deep, perhaps unsolvable today problems in image analysis, because after 13 years or so of trying to analyze large collections of images using latest computer techniques, I realized once again that the images are mysterious, and the stereotypical ones, the so-so ones, can be analyzed, and we can make a taxonomy of motifs, forms, maybe even energies, although I'm not sure. But the great ones are beyond our reason, and this is why we have art, fashion, cuisine, energies, movements, love, the mystery, right? So at the end, the images are unanalyzable, and this is great. But I decided that I will talk about something else because my work has been driven not only by my interest in theoretical ideas and my desire to talk to the academic community, but my work has always been driven by my work as an artist. I was trained in art since the age of 13 in Russia, when I studied architecture, then I continued after immigration to New York University Film School, when I started to work with computer images in 1994, as you mentioned, because I was drawn by this new medium of computer images, computer graphics, VR, what we now call metaverse, and my work was in dialogue with what was created around me by our artists, designers, architects, and so on. And what I wanted, once I realized that the semiotic project is so difficult and I will not be able to succeed, I said I'm going to do something easier, which is try to provide a set of terms for fellow artists, designers, and other creators who are using computers, and to give them or help them, right, to develop new terms in database, navigable space, in cultural interface, and so on. And it so happened that this summer, another new tool, or I would rather say a meta-medium, and it's not just a pretty word, but I can explain why I use this term, has developed, which is called AI image synthesis. Right? So I think we are, from my point of view, we are in the middle of a real evolution. Some of you probably heard about GPT-3, right? Which is a neural network trained to generate amazingly realistic and believable texts. You give it Virginia Woolf, it will give you Virginia Woolf. You give it marketing text, it will give you marketing text. You may not have realized that billions of YouTube videos you're watching or you're surrounded with are already generated by AI, and there are already cases of GPT-3 or similar networks writing full academic papers and papers being accepted. And just to tell you how serious it is, so me and my colleague, an Italian, yet another Italian living in exile, you know what I mean, right? He teaches in Venice, but he's in Berlin, so we've been working on a book for artificial aesthetics, and the spring he sent me a chapter, and I took on myself the job of kind of proofreading and formatting the chapter in pages, so all the chapters have the same format, and we're publishing it online. And when I'm kind of proofreading or looking at the chapter, and I noticed that some paragraphs are in italics. And I'm like, Emmanuel, so why you once again didn't do your job? Why are you sending me a half-finished chapter? Why is paragraphs in italics? He said, you notice? I talk about it. I said, what? These paragraphs are written by AI. So I didn't recognize the parts of a chapter about AI written by my esteemed colleague, right? And you know, if you're not using tools like Quillbot, which is free, which is a paraphraser tool and with dozens of software, it's also revolutionary in teaching because now our students are using these tools, and it's really impossible to recognize in many cases if it's written by AI or not. So something similar happening in images. So I think it started last year with a network called DALI, and now there's a DALI 2, and then there's a number of startups which released similar webwares, webware software which runs on the web, such as Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, DALI E-Mini, and we all use the same technique called AI image synthesis. So if you want to find out AI image synthesis, so idea is that to develop these systems, scientists scrape the web. So for example, some of these products use a scrape which is 5.6 billion images and descriptions, right? And that's of course very interesting because immediately being opened into all semiotic debates about relation between image and text, and with terms of 20th century art to go beyond narrative, to go beyond descriptions, but now it turns out we are back, right, into the image text description paradigm. So you basically scrape images with descriptions from all over. Some systems specifically use a large number of images which are more art images from sites such as DeviantArt, ArtStation, Pinterest, and so on. But our images are just general, so nobody really curates what's where, nobody really knows what's where. And then what you do is, I will not spend my time describing the technical part because you can find this online. You basically train the computer to generate these images using these descriptions, and then you can type new descriptions for prompts, right? So it's a short text. I mean, you can put pages of text, but the computer is actually only going to understand first couple of concepts. So you can just type one word, like a cloud, or you can put the whole sentence, and then the computer is going to generate new images if the images are genuinely new, right? So it's not about searching, it's not about finding which exists, we don't exist before. And again, the reason I'm not giving a demo is that I don't want to kind of waste time, I want to waste my time on the theory, which I already made. So what I've been doing since me and everybody else around me, which architects, right? Lots of theories dropped everything, now everybody's making images. I'm already getting bored, which is a good sign. For a while I was wondering about my future, but the last 3 months I spent kind of making images, which was also perfect because that was a point in my life where I decided that I will start giving more attention or give myself more time to my art practice, because where do you go after publishing 15 books and having way too many references in Maria talk? I mean, the only thing I can do is go back to being an artist, right? There's nothing else I can do as a scholar. Anyway, so it was interesting for me as my own artistic, and some images I generate, and I really think of them as more like my art images, and attempts to recreate a particular aesthetics, particular moods, particular environments, which I did in my drawings and paintings in my 20s. With other images are more like experiments, right? So I was using this new media, experimenting with it. And when I started posting about it, at first I just wanted to post these images as my artworks, but old habits die hard. So as I was posting them, I started to write little theoretical notes. So I now have 11 of these notes, which is more than enough for a chapter, but I didn't have time to put it like into actual long text. So what I'll do is something a bit disrespectful to you, please forgive me. I'll be like actually scrolling my Facebook and reading you some of these notes and showing you these images, but in between you'll see my posts about my visits to Paris and shopping. So So actually, it would be a bit like a day in the life of Lev Manovich. But it's not intentional. It's just because I didn't have time to put it together. And I'm going to start with this node. So here are the images. I'll show you the first. And one thing I want to say, so with systems, we have a kind of own biases, right? So if you simply put sky or cloud or whole or love, we'll generate something which is specific. So one way to get them to generate lots of different things is to specify the name of artist. So you can say still life in the style of Bosch, Cézanne, and Matisse, F35, black and white photos. You can basically combine description of content, description of aesthetics. You can say moody, lovely, playful, description of camera position, like virtual camera, interesting for you. And then the names of artists, architects. For example, one of my friends, he types things like architecture in the style of storm. So this was actually still like, I think, the style of Bosch. Right? So you can see this actually recent in September. Yeah, and what happens, every system set up a bit differently. This was Midjourney. So you can generate 4 images. So if you save them, and then if you like particular image, you can run the prompt again. So it generates over and over. You can basically generate thousands of images. Basically, you can make 1,000 images every day, right? Which is also amazing for artists. So I made this series, and then here's what I wrote. And I know it's a bit ridiculous that I'll be reading it, but between my Russian accent, it's been way early, and us trying to figure out how to do Symposium after 2.5 years of COVID, it's actually probably okay. So sorry to treat you as school children, but at least you can actually, if you're falling asleep, later you can go and read what I have here. So I hope it's okay, right? So it's called repetition and variation in AI image synthesis. I'm fascinated by Midjourney's ability to generate endlessly varying details. As I keep rolling the same image prompt over and over, generating new versions. Every time you ask it to regenerate the same image, new variations appear. Probably if you do this for thousands or millions of times, you may discover the system at work. In fact, you do realize after a while that this latent space of images is not infinite, meaning it is infinite, but once you you jumped, right? You are in a particular area and you keep using the same prompt and maybe change things a little, but you realize that this room has walls, right? And you kind of start bumping against these walls. And that's very fun. So the reason I also post series of images, some famous curator said, Lev, are you posting series of images? One would be enough. I said, no, one is not enough, because I'm not trying to find a perfect image, I'm trying to map a part of this latent space. It's like almost going in different directions from a particular point. Anyway. So consider this integral still life series. I got those integral still life, right? Okay. Fruit, silver, vessels, and other objects were used in seeing classical still lifes, especially in 17th century Dutch ones from Low Countries. And here we are. So that's why I thought this perfect place to start with images. I mean, I love Liège, right? It's kind of black, gray. I feel I'm like inside some Bosch painting here, despite the attempts to modernize it. Can be combined in infinite ways. So perhaps we'll never reach the boundaries of a space of all possible image versions of the first one I made. Now, humans' life combination of repetition and variation. Humanities scholars have analyzed the structures in many arts, from poetry, right, A, B, A, C, to music, to architecture, and so on. In my view, this is also why we love textures of marble, wood, and other natural materials, and this is why modern architecture fails, because there's not a variation, right? This kind of modularity of modernism, it's kind of a bit anti-human. Repetition and variation. And this is why I think we can stare at ocean or sea waves forever. Repetition and variation. I'm sorry to be so arrogant. Can I ask you just a glass of water? AI image synthesis tools such as Midjourney, which use models. So this model of training the network on this huge data set of images and the descriptions for diffusion models. So diffusion models just name for this particular type of neural network, right? So AI examples of diffusion models are likely to be better at generating such visual structures than the humans. So here I'm discovering something like what it's good for, what it actually it fits better. Because when I look at the ink of paper drawing, and I want to feel an area with regular but varying textual details, and if I'm able to do it, maybe I'll show you my early drawings at the end, which I also posted. Like let's say I start drawing clouds, tree branches, wood fence, I quickly notice my limits. I keep shading things, and it's very hard for me to keep shading things differently, right? We humans repeat, we all walk in the same way. We speak in the same way. This is why a computer surveillance system can identify us just very, very easily, right? Because it's very hard for us to break our patterns. Only actors can do it, perhaps. Especially after many years break from physical drawings, my brain and hand start repeating the same lines, shapes, and ways of representing something right away. A lot of variation is very hard. Okay? But Midjourney never gets tired. This to me is very fascinating, and I can endlessly make images, series that can explore this effect. The second series, still life series, is coming soon. And so as I said, some images I will show you is simply what I was making with tool, right? This was some of the first ones. And again, I think one particular thing I was fascinated with is my ability to explore these nuances between repetition and variation. The tool seems to be, on the one hand, you do reach limits, so it keeps repeating itself, but it can repeat itself in endless ways. But since here we are in the country of Magritte, right, in the Belgian surrealism, I also thought I would show them. So my idea was to create something which is a bit surreal, but not too obvious, right? Because it's very easy for computer tools to create kind of pure surrealism, things like this. Okay. Now let's continue. Let me find you something else. This is completely out of. Okay. Now, okay. Then next one. Perfect. So the next note is called Image-Text Relations and AI Image Synthesis after Roland Barthes. Daily. For decades, I see. Okay, I'm first showing images, right? So this is also a bit of a Bosch alien. Basically, I think I typed something like alien universe painted by Bosch, but of course I also use various other modifiers, and I also edit with Lightroom, so I change a bit the mood and so on. Right? This is just a selection from different series. So here's my wonderful colleague architect says, this is nice, but too typical Midjourney image. Okay, thank you. Anyway, so things like this. So here's the text. For decades, I assume that describing an image by words is limiting. Here we go. Perfect. Oops. Oh, I did something terrible. Okay. Here we go. Okay. That's why I'm afraid to touch keyboard, because it has its own life. For decades, I assumed describing an image by words is limiting. This was once an important assumption of arts in the modern era, right? I'm a modernist architecture, dance, music, visual arts, related cinema and photography. I wanted to get away from narrative, right? From theatricality, from plot, to use the term Russian formalists. And it's a bit strange to see, first of all, in 2000s, how the keywords, right, and hashtags made their way back, and kind of erasing the century modernism, and then all the humanities people, not you guys, but the bad ones, who never got the lesson about modern art, starting doing all those projects, like adding metadata, right, to images, and like, oh, very fine. And now this, this text, right, makes even more powerful return in the shape of these descriptions, right, which are used as prompts. This was one of the most important assumptions of arts in the modern era. For example, one of the key goals of visual modernism was to get rid of the story, having instead paintings explore their own visual languages. And this is also why Untitled became such a very common title for modern artworks. Refusing semantic labels that may limit what the viewer could see in the image. Now, this idea was not limited to art. Well, you will tell me, I'm not sure what time I officially started, so can you just tell me like maybe 5 minutes before, because I have no idea. I've never done this before, it's kind of performance. Well, it's okay. If I think I can do one more, it's actually working, it's actually working, right? Anyway, so this idea was limited to arts. For example, Roland Barthes suggested that newspaper text captions fixes the meaning of newspaper photograph, limiting its potential ambiguity. Again, i.e. caption for newspaper image. However, when I use AI tools such as Midjourney, I'm also using one called Stable Diffusion. There are many others. My experience is different. So Midjourney, for example, trying to find the right term, I would say amplifies my short phrase. So you put a short phrase, and maybe I'll do is short phrase, generating nuances, details, atmospheres, meanings, associations, and moods you didn't specify, and often would never even imagine. Right? So in the classical kind of modernist and semiotic tradition, we think of text limiting the image and fixing its multiplicity, ambiguity, intertextuality, and so on. Here it seems the system is taking a short text and actually amplifying it. And since many of you probably haven't seen these prompts, I will do something which normally I don't do. I was going to show you my own, but then I realized it's not my computer. But okay, later. So we can also find other relevant points in BART. For example, Rhetoric of the Image, 1964. He writes the linguistic, a famous article, linguistic message is indeed present in every image, as title, caption, accompanying press article, film dialogue, comic strip balloon. This changed a lot in the last 60 years, but it's still often the case. Now, within AI image synthesis paradigm, every image now literally has its linguistic code, its program. Right? The text prompt will generate this image. So here again, I don't remember, but for example, this one, I probably typed something like, a black city with black sky, okay, in the style of Bosch, and maybe like something like, I don't know, maybe atmospheric, and then, something like this, right? And of course, I make hundreds of them, and I select particular ones, and I also try to Photoshop, but the prompt can be very short. The prompt can be just like a few words, right? And it creates this amazingly detailed world, right? And now people are figuring out how to animate it, right? So the idea with the software, with the text doesn't limit the image, but in fact, the software which was taught, right, on the billions of image text pairs amplifies the text. So, and then this idea, right, of fixing the meaning, this idea is now standard in media studies. I didn't know this term actually. Entourage, right? So, So again, in AI image generation, we can say sort of turns this on its head, right? And we already used this metaphor of turning on its head, so we'll continue. The same text prompt can be used to generate many different versions of the same image. So every time you run this code, so to speak, a new visual word emerges. So that's my second note. So we'll continue. Okay, we'll continue. Okay, this is actually. Oh, it's funny, it shows you. I just realized, because the first time I'm looking at my Facebook a long time on somebody's computer, it shows my post in completely different order. It's like the order has no connection to actually how I posted it. So you see something which was posted today next to something I posted 3 months ago. Wow, that's interesting. I didn't know it was so bad, right? I didn't know so. Okay, and then this is just simply some more like art images. So the atmospheres. So here the idea was to generate different types of snow, something I was dreaming about since the early 20s. It'd be hard to draw, but I was able to get Midjourney to do it. And then it's kind of, I call this architecture for snow planet, right, or snow architecture. So it turns out architecture and atmospheres have lots in common. Let me see if I can, so that's why I realized trying to time it, so this was, for example, post I did actually July 1st, where I actually started showing people my early drawings, so you can see where I was coming. This is my mid-20s, so you can see where I was coming from and why I was interested in atmospheres. Sorry, can you see if I can find, maybe I'll get lucky, maybe I'll find something else. Okay, I see. So I have no idea what's going to come up. Give me a second. Anyway, this is, but it's okay guys, you're going to hear 2 days of theory. So this is very recent. This is my emotional reaction to the recent news of mobilization in Russia. Nobody knows exactly, but supposedly over 1 million men already immigrated from Russia in the last week or so. So here, the idea is faces of Russian youth, as imagined by AI, the day after this announcement, perhaps. So you can also do very good photography. Yeah. so basically, I think no adjustments at all. No adjustment. Again, you can also see, right, how sometimes like every face is different. Sometimes, right, here every face is different, and here it's kind of the same face. There's some variations. And here it's also more or less the same face, and here I don't know, maybe the same or different, right? Only computer can measure this. Okay, let me see if I can find anything else. Sorry, I have time maybe for maybe 5-7 minutes, right? 5-7, yeah, 5-7. Even 10, okay, even 10. Okay, even 10. Yeah, maybe I'll find something else maybe. I will not, okay. And also, it's only, okay, this one is a good one, right? Okay, so it's completely different order. It has no connection. Wow. Anyway, okay. So so this was another one in the series of kind of using modern still life as a structure, and to study what AI can do, and also to study again this structure, repetition, variation. So it was the artist's name, which you can imagine was Magritte. Description of the scene, something like the city with a highway, like a road, and this road going to the horizon, one term for color, muted colors, one term for tones, silver tones, and one term to increase resolution, something like this. Let's see, something else. Okay, and then this was another, okay, even this is experiment. So one of the softwares has a kind of parameter which allows you can generate the same image. You can vary how literally the software interprets your prompt, or how, let's say, or not. So parameter goes from 0 to 20, stable diffusion, right? So if you put 20, literally get what you type, and often results are kind of boring and not interesting. And if you put 1 or 2, it just does something very different. So what I discovered is that I can actually use the same prompt, and I can kind of make the same still life, almost replaying the evolution of a history. So the same still life changes from very realistic, or let's say very detailed, to almost abstract. So here it is, right? Here it is. So it's a still life by, of course you can recognize the name, Chardin, right? And this is just a 9 out of dozens of generations I made. So from abstraction to realism and back again. Okay. So here we have different stages. Right, to make it easier to see artificial history evolution in image style, which stable diffusion controls can create, I assemble selected versions of the same still life paintings in one grid, left to right, top to bottom, from almost abstract sketch to fully detailed, realistic version of the same image. I was changing scale parameters from 1 to 10, and keep everything else the same. So I call this what if art history, and maybe I'm going to finish at this point. In this potentially, many of these experiments potentially can be developed into a whole new direction, not just for image generation, not just for art, but actually for research. So people in this room, I assume, right? Most of us, or all of us, some of us come from computer science, some of us come from art history, semiotics, visual culture, media theory, but we're dealing with existing images, right? Somebody creates something, you analyze it. Roland Barthes analyzes Panzani advertising, Laura Mulvey analyzes the gays in Hollywood films, Enzo analyzes video games. You analyze something which somebody made. But what people make is only a small portion of what people can make. I mean, you can write, I think, a beautiful meta-history of human culture by talking about architecture which was never built, like movie scripts which were never filmed, not just only Eisenstein who wanted to film, for example, James Joyce Ulysses. He also wanted to make Capital after Karl Marx, but also, of course, people in Hollywood and people everywhere, right? Think about architects, and maybe usually get to build like 1% out of their proposals, right? So we have this kind of bias, the presentness bias, right? We are biased toward analyzing what exists, as opposed to analyzing the full scale, the full space, the full alien planet of human imagination. And that's a very big topic, so let me make it more concrete, and I will finish in about 90 seconds. So I feel like I'm sitting between two holes. I feel like if I'm like saying the wrong thing, like some still needle is going to like. Okay. Make sure we don't do it. Send them away. This is terrifying. So what I was thinking is that, let's say when I started doing this image experiments, right, which you showed, a very primitive one coming from 2009. Now, of course, there's much more advanced work in computer science. Maybe it's advanced, maybe it does energies a lot, probably not. But anyway, right? Not just two features, but many features. So what I was interested in is to analyze how artists change. Maybe it is George O'Keeffe or Francis Bacon, right? Or Henry Frankenstein, right? How do artists change over time? Because I think that going back to the question of humanities and the limitations of language, the fact that we use language, we talk about images is limiting us because language doesn't have lots of terms to describe quantitative change, right? How something becomes faster, darker, and so on. And how do you, for example, even here, right? Yes, you can say, we have a change from abstract to realistic, but there's many other things going on. So I was interested to measure images, right, to extract visual features, when to use with descriptions as a way to plot how things change over time. But when I saw this tool, I realized, Lev, you can do something else. So let's say we have, I don't know, Picasso. Sorry to use such a patriarchal example, but first thing which comes to mind, because Picasso was about changes also, right? So let's say we have like his more realistic images, and then we have Cubism, and we have blue period, and so on. Or Henry Frankenstein, or whoever. So now imagine an artist was creating something like in 20, and the same artist creating something like in 40. You can generate different evolutionary paths. So as opposed to only studying what exists, you can study what this artist could have done. What this artist, architects, filmmaker, dancer, company, what Google, the software Google could have created, right? Both in terms of like a different path the person took from A to B, or maybe an artist who passed away, like let's say Van Gogh, sorry for this example, Van Gogh passed away in 1990, what else he could have done, right? And again, it's not any a new idea. You can think of it using techniques from simulation, etc. But this tool makes it particularly easy to play with, more scientifically. So what if I start thinking about semiotics or cultural analytics or digital humanities, what could have been, and not only what was created? I know it's a bit vague, but I hope it's also provocative enough for 10:20. Thank you so much for giving me extra few minutes, and also allowing me to start showing the artwork as a part of my discourse. And I'm looking forward to your wonderful contribution and wonderful exchanges over amazing meals in the city of Bosch, Bruegel, and maybe even Chantal.